Welcome to Right on Track, a songwriting podcast. Thanks to Tone for tuning in. I'm Demi Michelle Schwartz, and I'm thrilled you're joining me on my songwriting journey. So kick back and relax, don't fall flat, and remember, stay right on track. Hey everyone, welcome back to Right on Track. Joining me on the show today for a conversation is Frankie Muriel. Hi, Frankie.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm
Thanks for having me on.
fantastic. I hope you're doing well, and I am so excited to have you on the show. So, before we dive into all of the specifics for the chat today, I would love for you to share a little about yourself and your journey in music so far. It's been a while. So, if you can take us back to the beginning and share how you got started and maybe some highlights along the way.
Sure. I've been doing this a long time. Um, as a kid, I grew up. My father was a Latin percussionist, so I just grew up steeped in all kinds of different music. This is all I've ever wanted to do with my life. It's all I've ever done with my life. We laugh. We say it's a hard way to make an easy living, but I've been doing that since I was a kid. I was playing professionally when I was about 16 in bars and clubs. Rose through the ranks pretty quick. My band in St. Louis. It's called Broken Toys, and we scored a major label deal at the end of the '80s. So, had some videos on MTV, toured around the world, all that fun, great, living your dream kind of stuff. Um, Grunge hit, music taste change, out with the old, in with the new. So I found myself without a record deal, um, and just kind of trying to figure out what was next. Fell in with a bunch of friends back home. We started a band called Doctors Vegas, and that has been, that's taken me to parts all around the world playing music and having a good time. And we're celebrating our 30th year doing that. We had a residency in Vegas, played Atlantic City, Mexico, Cabo, like, just kind of everywhere. That was kind of a disco, dance, funk, big band, horns, backup singers, all that kind of stuff. Party music, party time. Um, and recently, I've thought that I wanted to get back into it and do a major release. And that's what brings me today and why we're talking.
Yeah, no, fantastic. And you've definitely experienced the highs and the lows of music. And so I'm just curious for any artists who are maybe just starting out or even ones who have been in the industry for a while, what advice do you have when it comes to perseverance and pushing through all the obstacles when you have a passion for music?
You know, the biggest thing is to remember that you have that passion because a lot of times, we find, especially when you do this professionally, the part about it that you love the most, which is playing and creating, is the least thing that you get to do. Being on stage is the smallest part of what I have to do. It's so much other things. You're basically running a small business, and anybody who has a small business will tell you, you're the everything. You do everything. You guys do everything yourselves. It's you're recording, you're promoting, we become marketers now, and the times have changed. When I had a major label, there was staffs of people that did all this. We all do it now, 24/7, with our posts, with sharing, with coming up with ideas to get people to connect. You have to, it's never changed. Whether we were playing radio stations in every country, or every city in the country, 3 or 4 of those a day, flying to different cities, driving to the next ones. The same thing is happening today where you have to post to keep engagement. You do all of these things to get views so people will discover your music. Just back then you had to go play acoustic and do morning shows at 7 a.m. For the drive time shows, or play a free show around Christmas time for different stations that promoted you. So it's still the business of promotion before you get to actually do the things you love, but it's changed so much and it's rapidly changing, as we speak, all the different ways to connect with people. So I think that what you have to do, you have to remember why you did this in the first place. And the pandemic was the big changer that reminded all of us, before they paid us, before you could make a living in music, we did it for free. I tell bands all the time when I'm producing them, enjoy this time in this creative bubble, because this is as pure as it gets. Once it gets out of your hands, it's people's opinions. It's a strange industry that we're in, the creatives, where if you usually you do a good job, you get paid, right? And you're known a good job, you get good reviews, this and that. But in the creative worlds, you can do a great job and still the public decides if it was good enough. And that's a weird thing to process. It's a weird thing to learn how to deal with. And you have to remember that when you created your music or your song or your book or your art, you did it purely out of being one to create and share it. So it was a success then. And you have to separate the fact that it may not be a success with the public doesn't mean it wasn't good enough, doesn't mean it wasn't successful. Because the fact that you thought it, felt it, saw it, and created it as it exists, that is the success. Now, that's a hard thing to pay your bills with, but that's what you have to remember when times suck because you hit these brick walls in this business almost daily, you know? But you have to remember that you would do this for free and you did it for free before you got paid to do it. If you are somebody who's been in the business for a while, if you're just breaking in, this is something you want to do. You have to just put your time in and you have to develop those skills. And like I said, they're more than just the talents and abilities to be able to write a song or sing a song or play a song. You have to understand that if you do want to share this with the world, just releasing it and putting it out that means nothing. It's just there's so much noise, so much stuff coming at people constantly every second that they're scrolling that you get lost and it never touches anybody except your friends and family. So if you want to share it, you have to learn how to be able to share it the new ways.
Yeah, so much wisdom. And one of the things you said that I love so much is this idea of when you create something, that's success and you should celebrate that. I think we can get so caught up in how many people come to shows or how many streams a song has on Spotify or whatever, like these very statistical things we use to measure success that I think sometimes people forget you literally wrote a song. That's huge, and I think if we go
Exactly.
back to the roots of it, I think that's so important.
And most people never you're right. Most people
Right.
never finish anything. Most
Yeah,
people never
yeah,
have the guts to put it out and let it be judged, but the only way you can share it and the only way you can, as creators, all we have a feeling and we have an idea and we're excited enough to finish it for ourselves. Then if it's good enough, we're excited enough to share it with people, right? Then you got to remember the only way it's ever going to connect with someone else is if you put yourself out there, and it sucks. And a lot of times it's a very hard thing to do, or to reveal yourself, or whatever it is that you're doing. But you have to remember that just getting it finished is a huge part that most people, 90% of people, don't finish anything, and then they don't let other people check it out. So it's a
yeah,
huge thing.
yeah, for sure, absolutely. So now I want to chat about your songwriting process. Over the years, how have you evolved as a songwriter?
Oh my gosh, so many, but I'm in a great season right now. I've had years of no inspiration and years of prolific output. Um, I think now, I think when I was younger, I did what I knew would work or what would please either the fans or the executives. So I was more calculated in my writing, and it worked a lot of times, and it didn't work a lot of times. But when something works, you kind of keep doing it, right? But when you start from scratch and you have nothing, and no one cares if this album comes out these days. No one's waiting for it. You know what I mean? Even I have fans, and they're not even waiting for it because they want to see me do what they're used to see me do. So when I got to that point, it really is the most freeing thing ever because I can do whatever I want. I can write however I want and go deeper because I'm just doing it to express myself. I'm not doing it to please an executive who says, I need to have this kind of song at this kind of tempo, this kind of hook. And it's got to be about this because we want to sell records and you want to sell tickets. Or this is what everyone who's following you wants you to do. So you have to do that. Right now, I'm starting from scratch. After 35 years, I'm starting from scratch. So I really can do whatever I want. And what has happened, I've found, I'm getting the best reviews of my career. I'm getting people so excited and they're sharing it. And it's like this. I mean, you kick yourself like I should have done this 20 years ago. But this is the season I'm in now. And I'm feeling things and I'm putting things on record that I want to do, and it's more me, it's more natural, and the funny thing that happens, and I think it happens with most writers, is the more personal you get with an idea or a phrase or a feeling or the way you sum it up, the more universal it becomes. So the more personal you become, the more universal it is because it really is based on human feelings and the human condition, you know?
Absolutely. I resonated so much with what you said about the authenticity and just writing about personal things and doing what feels right. And I think, what you spoke to with being signed and kind of having your creative control taken away, that's one of the reasons why I love being independent because I don't have anybody trying to tell me what I can and can't write about or what my song should sound
Exactly.
like. And so that's the beauty of being independent. And I think it's really great how you're really discovering now that you can just write whatever you want to write, express yourself in an authentic way, and that's going to resonate with listeners. So, speaking of your music, I would love to hear about your latest single, Those Were the Nights. So, can you share the inspiration behind this?
Absolutely. So I was going through, I was working on this album. I was kind of going through songs I had in my vaults, in the studio, kind of, songs that I've written over the years, songs I felt maybe didn't get their shot. And now as an older guy, I can sing it with a different life experience and stuff. And I happened to find all of these old videos and tapes from back in the day, and I sent them off to get digitized, and when they came back, I was just watching all of these concert footage and all of these tour films, and I started really thinking about those times. I started thinking about my band, started thinking about my fans, and a lot of them are still with me, and it was kind of a love letter to those times, those crazy, hair band, late '80s, early '90s, um, times, because there was nothing like it, and then when I heard it back, I started coming up with a few of the lines. I realized everyone has these. Everyone that's alive has memories, right? And everybody alive has memories that are kind of stand out as some of the best times of their life. Doesn't mean you're hanging on to the past. Doesn't mean you can't let it go. You're still living, but you're looking back like that was a good time. Whether it was with me touring the world with my buddies, whether it's somebody they had their time in college or a young startup company, anytime that you had that period in your life where you were just young and free and the world was wide open and at your fingertips if you believed, that's what that song came from.
I love that so much. And like you were talking about earlier with when you're personal, it's universal. And I definitely think this is super relatable for the reasons you just said. Like you're writing this song specifically about your journey as a songwriter and a performer. And this is a love letter to your fans. But at the heart of the song, it has a message that everybody can relate to, which I think is amazing. And you did mention your album, which is called I'm Still Standing. Can you give some insight into the overall inspiration for this project and maybe when listeners can expect to hear it?
Yeah, it's coming out in August, so we've been, teasing out singles here as we go. The first one, "Sweet Surrender," came out in March. We're talking about "Those Were the Nights" now. We've got a couple more that are coming. The album drops in August, and "I'm Still Standing" is basically, my creed, man. I'm still here. I'm still productive. People our age, they kind of expect you to fade away, and you've had your shot, you've done your thing, but I still got some. I've discovered really that I still have so much more to say, and I still have people that want to hear it. So, when I was putting this album together, it originally started out as a blues album because I started thinking about what do I want to sing when I'm an old guy? You know what I mean? What kind of music do I want to do that people will still come and see me? So I recorded a batch of songs, and then I started recording some more. Then the pandemic hit, and I started with some more. So I've done this album about 3 times, and this final collection, um, kind of they all spoke together. They're talking about my life. I'm looking back at times I've um, interpreted songs that I did, I wrote when I was in my 20s, when I had the label deal, and I can sing them now with a different, I think, connection, having lived so much more life. When you're a kid, you just write what you think works or what you think but when you live it, you can go back and re-sing it, 30 years later with a different emotion. So it's 9 tracks. They talk about my life. They talk about my triumphs, my loses, my wins, and things that are dear to me and my heart. And I'm excited to share it.
That's so incredible. I love how you're able to, like you said, go back to those older songs and sing them with a new perspective. I think that's super, super cool. And I'm really excited to hear the whole project. And
Thank you.
so, yeah, so now I read that you opened a School of Rock in Missouri, which is super, super cool. So, can you share a little about this?
Absolutely. School of Rock is an amazing franchise. This is another kind of project that happened through the pandemic, um, where all of a sudden all my friends are out of work, right? We can't, the very thing we do, which is assemble large groups of people together to party and have a good time, is outlawed, you know? But at the same time, I learned personally what it was like. I grew up in a band, right? That was my tribe. That was how we learned our work ethic together. We conquered things together. We achieved amazing things in our lives being in a band. And the cool thing about a school of rock is, it's not just where you sit in a room and have lessons with a teacher. We put these kids in a band from day one, whether they're just learning one line thing on one string. They're all doing it together with drums and bass and keyboards. And it's so cool to watch these kids grow. And I think they not only learn your musical lessons together, you learn that, hey, I have to be prepared because the other guys are depending on me, which is what you learn in a band. You have to learn your parts, where I think if you're just learning scales in a room with a teacher, you don't have that interaction with other musicians. So we give that to them from day one. And there's kids starting, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and they're in a band, and it's so cool. If they're not doing sports in school, or if they're not in any of the clubs, this is kind of their tribe, and it's such a cool program, and it's such a cool thing to see how quicker, quite honestly, than learning sitting at a piano and learning. You have to know your basics. You have to learn the elements of your instrument and the rudimental, tools. But to do it as a group, every week they get together in a group and play together to practice what they learn separately is so amazing and so effective. How it brings people together and they learn the lessons better, and the teamwork. And we let them open up shows, and we got a really cool stage in the school, which we've done a little bit different since I am a live performer. I'm like, no, let's put lights in there. Let's show these kids how it feels. You can't hear, everything's too loud. Like, this is how it is on stage. So it's a very, very cool thing.
That is so awesome. And I think the other thing too is after all the experience you've had, it's so amazing that you're able to give back to the next generation of musicians in this way.
Absolutely. I mean, that was a bonus part. Originally, I did it to make money, I thought, but I found that it's so cool and so rewarding to put into these kids, and to help out the other musicians too. They have a steady stream of income. They're getting rewarded by passing on their skills to another generation. And as somebody who's kind of overseeing, I can back out and just kind of see this thing grow and see these kids grow and mature and really just be little badasses. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, this has been such a fantastic conversation packed with so much wisdom and inspiration. So, just to
Thank you.
wrap up, yeah, you're so welcome. Can you please share one more piece of advice with anyone listening?
Believe in yourself. Do not let what anyone ever says to you discourage you from doing this. If it's in your heart to do it. You have to separate it from the result, and it's taken me a lifetime to figure that out. So if you can grasp that early, do that. But do not let anyone ever, because of how you look, because how you sound, because how good or not good you are, do not let anyone stop you from the feeling inside. Because if that feeling inside is bubbling up in you to create, create. Don't worry about where it's going to go and what's going to happen. Do the creation first.
Amazing. You need to do like graduation speeches at colleges or something. Like, you're so inspiring.
I mean, that's my TED talk.
Yeah. Like, I'm, like, so enraptured over here, like, keep talking. Oh my goodness. Fantastic. Well, you were a delightful guest. Can you please share with everybody where they can find you online and listen to your music?
Absolutely. Any way you stream music, you can get it. It's on every service. My website's frankiemuriel.com. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on TikTok. All the stuff, man.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much again for joining me. And listeners, that is a wrap on this chat with Frankie. I hope you enjoyed it. And of course, until next time, stay right
Right on
on
track.
track.